Now, what about your web series? Things going wrong? What happened? What funny stories have we got of disasters that happened that
We're back talking to Sally and Billy. We should add.
We're fortunate to have some a cast full of magic makers to solve these kind of problems. We had on our, I think it was a third shoot with Stephen Costin. It was our. We had a Walter Frey kind of vibe going with a big feast and the boss at his table, and we rocked up and catering had said, they got the feast organised, all good. Catering just thought that the feast meant what are we feeding the cast and crew today, not we need a feast. So I had to go and magic up a feast.
That was pretty hilarious. So
in about
Billy,
40 minutes.
In 40 minutes.
It was good fun.
So that was fun.
I felt very proud when we did. We magicked up a feast in 40 minutes.
You go to KFC or something?
Fortunately, there's a super IGA just around the corner from where we were.
Not that we're actually necessarily giving any product placement there to them, but thank you for
I'm very grateful for that.
They were
establishment.
Yes, of course. Because usually catering for actors and directors and everybody, there's not much. Actors usually don't eat much. You don't have to.
I don't know. Our cast quite happily. They were fine.
Eating the wheel of cheese for the next 3 weeks.
We luckily also had the fabulous Phoebe Taylor, who's another cast member, who was filming that day, because we would actually sometimes shoot 2 episodes a day. So she was shooting that afternoon, who actually went with Billy and helped secure the feast for Stephen.
It was great moral support. I was very grateful.
Yes, she was keeping everyone very calm. Everything's fine. We'll find what we need. Anyway, no, they were great. They brought that back. Look, things will always go, particularly with filming, things will always go wrong. You're never going to have it go as you planned it to. You hope you will, but it doesn't always happen that way. The one rule that I have is we don't finish late. And I think we finished one shoot day in the 10 days we shot. I think we finished one shoot day half an hour over, which
that's at 11:30 at night.
Yes, right. No, thankfully not. No, but it is that thing of even when you're running 2 hours behind schedule, which can happen. Hopefully, if you're scheduled properly, then you still have lots of breathing space and you can catch up time. Look, things can go horribly wrong. You can have massive delays occur because we had a lot of additional artists involved, as I call them, in this series, and most of them were non-actors.
Right.
So, explain to certain people that when you actually are coming to film, that means you do come to film. You don't just not come or say, I'll be there an hour late, is that okay? Or... No, not really. But, that didn't happen very often. But mainly with venues. I remember we were shooting at one of the venues, and I won't mention the name because all of our location sponsors were amazing and gave us the venues for free. But there was one place we rocked up and the poor organizer, she was losing it because she'd said to everybody at the space that we were filming in, this is happening, nothing else is to go on. And so the first day we got there, the room we were supposed to film in suddenly wasn't available. We had to run around and find an alternative space. We were then told we couldn't have the other one we wanted. So that took about 2.5 hours to sort out. So that was crazy. Then another day we rocked up and they were testing the alarms. We all just stood there going, that isn't happening beyond the next half an hour, is it? Because we probably don't need that to be on the soundtrack. And it was just things like that'll happen. And again, it's working with places that aren't used to film crews. So it was just an education process. We had a couple of teething problems there, and then it was all fine and just rolled forward. But lots can go wrong. Look, there's plenty, but
But have you got any takeaways from web series creators that you can just give people a few little, tips when you're making a web series that possibly wouldn't come up if you're,
Always feed your crew well.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
They're not no one's getting paid, so you've got to keep morale up. So feed everyone magnificently.
Yeah.
I think, and particularly when it's a non-paid, non-budget situation, look after your cast and crew. Because, exactly, people need to be feel valued. But I think even if you are being paid as well, thank everyone. It's amazing what gratitude can do when people feel valued, and that's what gratitude does for them. So thank them, because also they don't have to be doing it. It's funny, even when you're giving them payment, they don't have to be doing it. They can say no. If you've got really good people that you love working with, value them, whether you're paying them or not. And we're been in a situation ourselves where we've worked with the same crew actually that are working on the paid screen production that I do, which is a documentary, as well as working on the web series, and they get, equal thanks both sides because they don't have to be doing it.
Yeah.
And they're very, very good, and they always go the extra mile for us. And I think the other thing is with the web series, as far as what I often get the question, what should I do a web series about?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I often say, if you don't know what the web series is yet, don't do it. Do something that's really close to your heart, however, whatever that might be. You want to do a comedy? Great. Have a think about what would make you feel excited to get up in the morning to write about or to go and film in the comedy realm. You want to do a drama? Same thing. It can be tough, as you guys know. I mean, you're involved as well in the Shakespeare, in the web series creation thing. Whether it be Shakespeare or comedy or whatever, it better get you out of bed in the morning. Because if it doesn't, again, there's often, particularly for creators, not a lot of money there. You're usually the ones taking the budget, the pay cuts to make sure everyone else gets fed, or travel money or whatever else. So, yeah, be passionate, I think, is the big one. And ask. If you don't know, ask. There's always people around that can help.
Don't presume to know.
Yeah, don't presume to know.
There is a great community for web series. I mean, we like having a lot of them on our show to have a chat, and everyone's got it. It's amazing how many different ideas there are. Like you always think it's like television, I guess, but because web series aren't constrained by people higher up, you always think, oh, well, that's really interesting. Where that idea came from.
And I think the thing too is that is true. It's kind of like the new wave of television, but it's not the kind of TV where you had to go through a bunch of TV execs to get permission to do it. My big thing about web series particularly is, try and always do your best work. There's this attitude, so I've heard it from a couple of, it's okay, it's just a web series. It's like, it's a web series. It kind of lives out there forever. And as we know, you put something on the internet, it never goes away. You might remove it, but it'll pop up somewhere else. And it's not saying, I'm not saying be perfect, because no one's going to be perfect, but just make sure you're always putting your best foot forward. Just because that way also you'll get more satisfaction out of it, being able to go, well, that was the best I could do right now. And that's okay. It doesn't have to, it's not necessarily going to be the best ever, but just as long as you've put your best foot forward. I think that's been interesting in the web series world. There was a bit of an attitude of, it's just a web series. But actually, no, it's really actually a really important medium, and it's getting more and more popular, and more people are watching them. So put your best foot forward and you'll do better. You'll always improve, but that was kind of the attitude we had. This is an experiment, but we're going to do the best we can do in first series. And then series 2 comes along and we up the ante on that because of what we learnt first time around. Yeah, people are forgiving in web series as well about, you are progressing, but that's important. But yeah, Melbourne Web Fest is a good example actually of the community coming together, I have to say, which we were a part of last year with series 1.
Yeah.
And yeah, huge. I'm just going to give a plug out to them because they are really amazing, to Steiner and Lauren and all the guys there, because that was probably, for me, and I've attended a lot of festivals, that was probably one of the most inclusive group of people I think I've been around ever in the screen industry, and just so supportive of each other. The filmmakers that were present were just so invested in everyone's success in this medium.
Yeah.
Which was so refreshing.
Yes.
And it really was. And again, down to the management of the Web Festival to a degree, but it was just fascinating to see the amount of creators from all over the world who turned up, who just were so in love with what everyone was doing and excited.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
And your web page looks very professional. It's quite slick. It actually looks like the wallpaper on your web page is laurel wreaths, because you've got so many awards up there.
God, yes, that's funny. That was, look, that's the thing as well. It's kind of odd for us because I'm very grateful, totally, and I'm delighted. The thing about getting all those laurels, there was this little thing of, we just like a couple. It'd be nice to have a couple just to put on stuff. And you kind of get a bit addicted to the festival circuit after a while. I really like that festival. That sounds really cool. Let's just put it in there. So yeah, we ended up with a lot of laurels on the front page, which is great and amazing, and I'm so grateful. And I'm really glad, and it's a good testament again to valuing the cast and crew, making sure their work was getting seen, and it's led to things as well for us, which we can't talk about yet, but it's led to things for us that actually have budget, which is quite extraordinary.
Right.
Which we'll be able to talk about more hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But it has been quite extraordinary. The response it got was a bit gobsmacking, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
me being a perfectionist, I can see the flaws. I can go, that could have been done a bit better. I might have edited that a bit better. But at the same time, it's just been lovely to have everyone's work so appreciated. So yeah, it's 31 festivals now and 8 awards. So.
Have you been to any of the festivals?
Only Melbourne Web Fest.
Yeah.
Of this round, but yeah. Oh no, I went to Made in Melbourne as well. Anything that was local.
Yes.
So Made in Melbourne Web Fest. Did I go to any others? Oh, I was supposed to go to Dublin Web Fest, which we got into as well, and I couldn't get there because we had other filming things, so I couldn't go, which was a bit sad. But yeah, well, hopefully we'll get into their festival again this year, and I can go to Dublin. Cause
Season 2 is looking a bit better. I mean, it's looking a bit slicker. Like you have learned a few things. I mean, it's it's a step up. Definitely.
And it had to be. I think that's also my philosophy. If you're going to do it, keep stepping up, stepping up. Now, the thing is too, as I said, season 1 was a complete experiment, very much ad hoc. Let's just go make this, see what happens. Put your best foot forward, but let's not put pressure on ourselves. We had 3 different directors of photography. We had a whole plethora of locations. It was not as focused as season 2 became. Yeah. And while it was a nice idea in theory, that's when we sat down and said, Bill and I, because we're both executive producing this as well, and said, okay, this has got to be much more focused. So Sean Herbertson came on board as our director of photography for season 2. Okay. He shoots on a red camera, so that's helpful in getting the look. Ooh. Yeah, very. The red dragon camera that he's got. Plus also we had more access to equipment because crew had upgraded some stuff. So we had the full film dolly and we had the drone and we had all this other bits and pieces we didn't have to play with last time.
Yeah.
And we locked it down to 4 locations only that we shot all 13 episodes in so that we could actually control how much traveling and everyone knew where they were going. And so, yeah, I mean, we just made it more focused and higher step up again in the quality. It had to do that. And shot it in CinemaScope ratio. So, which is fabulous. A bit overkill for web series, but we were like, we don't care. We like that. We're going to do that.
That step up went just...
Yeah, exactly. People said, where are you going to go from here? I'm like, well, don't you worry. We have plans. We know the moon. No, we know where we're going from here. But yeah, it's again, and that was just because, again, we wanted to really showcase everyone's talents and skill set and give the actors the most extraordinary canvas we could to put their work on.
So you went from 6 to 13. How did you decide on 13? Was it lucky 13 or?
Luckily 13 is my lucky number, so that was a good thing. That wasn't planned though. That was probably the one unfocused part about it.
It was going to be 14.
Okay.
Only one of our actors got too busy.
Right. Yeah.
So they couldn't be part of it, unfortunately.
No, I was very sad about that, but yeah.
That's 13, what season 3 is for.
Yeah.
Yes.
13 is plenty. And Bill did actually end up saying to me at one point when I said, so I've just asked so-and-so. He said, would you just stop now, please? We're going to have a cast of 28 or something. We won't be able to do it. But it was that I just wanted to, and again, we obviously went back and spoke to the original members from series 1. A couple of them couldn't do the schedule for series 2, so I had to replace them. And then I kind of, we do get I get a lot of requests from actors about being in the series,
right?
Which is lovely, but it does mean I'm spoilt for choice, and then I have trouble saying no because I really want to work with that person. I'd like them to come and play. They've emailed me. Can I not just reach out? So I've had to be stopped from doing that because I get a bit too excited. But it has been extraordinary, the response. I think actors also, and it's been interesting because it's some actors that are extraordinarily experienced in Shakespeare and some that have had none at all. And I think the ones that have had none at all, it's just because they too, like the audience, see that as a really safe way of getting into Shakespeare without having to do a full play.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a few of our cast, Michaela had never done Shakespeare before. Before she worked with us. Ben Steele in season 1 hadn't before he worked with us. Who else is in this current season? Shane Savage. There's a few. Fallon Ryan had done work. They'd done work in classes, but not actually on screen or on stage.
Yeah.
So there's and they all rallied and stepped up and did beautiful work. But it's a challenge, I think, and so actors get excited by that idea too.
But you've also got tagged on the end of the series episodes. There's Tony Abbott makes an appearance at one stage, which is an interesting combination of Shakespeare and Tony Abbott with his
series
own...
1. Series 1. Billy's episode, of Hamlet. Speak the speech.
The suppository of all wisdom.
The suppository of all wisdom. Yeah.
Which is a classic.
Yeah, I thought it could be... play that so he's sort of he'd be like Tony Abbott's media advisor, kind of a la Malcolm Tucker, kind of.
Yeah,
kind
a bit of in the thick of it.
Not a velociraptor of an advisor like Malcolm Tucker is, but yes, I thought, oh yeah, we could do that, and then you add on that.
So does Tony Abbott get a writing credit on the end of it?
No, because he's a politician and a public figure, so we're allowed to actually use sound bites. I looked legally into that, so it's okay.
It was timed really well. I think about 5 days after he got the knife.
Yeah, this was really interesting. That season 1 was quite odd. So we had Alan Fletcher playing Macbeth, who did a beautiful job performance-wise in that episode. He was very, very good. And then and he was playing a political rival who was planning to take down an opponent or knife an opponent. Then we had Billy playing Hamlet, being the political advisor to a prime minister who kept putting his foot in his mouth. So finished therefore with the Tony Abbott quote, and I think it was 3 days, no, it wasn't even that, a day later, Malcolm Turnbull challenged him in a spill and took over the Liberal Party. And we just went, and I think I put out on social media, nice to know the Liberal Party have been watching Shakespeare Republic. So glad that we could influence, national politics. But yeah, it was kind of odd. The vibe at the time. The other thing about Shakespeare Republic is actors will come to me and say, I kind of want to make a point about something currently going on. And I think this speech relates to that.
Okay.
So we've had that happen with a few of the pieces this year as well, actually. But yeah, Fletch came to me with he loves Macbeth. He loves I always struggle to say the name of the play. The Scottish play. He loves the Scottish play and that particular character, and I think actually would play it extremely well in a full production. But we talked about what's the relevance now, and we said it's kind of obvious. Look at what's going on with the Labor Party just before, and now the Liberal Party. It's like our leaders aren't safe, and so that's what that became about. And then talking to Bill about the Hamlet thing, yeah, we kind of went, let's do. Bill had been watching a lot of In the Thick of It, the British political comedy series, where Peter Capaldi plays Malcolm Tucker, who is an amazing character, and so it was a bit of influence, I think, coming from there as well, that actually Hamlet could be played as a political media advisor with the speak the speech. And Tony Abbott was already providing us so much gold. The stuff he
too
was
much
saying.
material.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
like a Trump. It's just too
like
much.
it was.
We've got enough. The comedians are saying.
That's it.
Take a few weeks off.
That's it.
Too much here.
Doing the comedians out of a job at the moment. I know. So we kind of, so that was us trying to be very relevant. And it turned out we were much more relevant than we realised, which was hilarious. But I think, again, it just underlines what Shakespeare Republic's about, which is, we're trying to show that human nature hasn't changed. And the things he was talking about at the time, politically and socially, it's not actually, sadly, and as I said, in many cases, that different to now, because we haven't changed. So a lot of his political stuff, I mean, Chris Kirby's a good example in season 2 who did this Thomas More speech.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's great work. And but he did that because his comment was, the world, we've stopped being kind to each other, we've stopped listening. And he was very hot on the things like the Black Lives Matter campaign and also the refugee situation, and just the fact that we'd stopped communicating. So he played it as Thomas More, instead of addressing a crowd rioting in the street, addressing a parliamentary committee deciding on border policy. Which is known as the refugee speech, and it's basically saying you're doing this to other people. What's to stop anyone from doing this to you? And you're making it law, so it's even more dangerous now because this means someone else can do it to you with impunity. It was beautifully put together, and actually one of our longer episodes, but we just looked at it. So I'm not cutting that down. It really works, but it's so relevant to what's going on now. So we've got a few of those peppered through this season 2 as well.
Do you feel like editing down Shakespeare occasionally?
I do. And I do. No, I do. I will. It's funny. I was very reverent around it in season 1 because I'm like, I don't want to. But it literally comes down to some of the speeches are just really long. And so you actually have to look at it and go, I mean, we did edit down. I have edited down a few of the longer speeches. But be very careful when doing that you don't remove the meaning, because obviously every word is important. So it's a smidge arrogant of me to go in there with my pen, hence why I get the adapted by credit now, because you do. I mean, no matter how interesting Shakespeare is or how interesting the actor is, I just think, 10 minutes is probably too long, really. I think our longest episode runs nearly 7. But the speech itself that one's from, it would be about 10 minutes long. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's also just cutting to the point part of the thing of screen is you can. I mean, if you mentioned earlier Michael Fassbender's version of the Scottish play that came out on screen, that was cut to pieces. It's so much missing of text out of that play, but I think they successfully managed to put across the atmosphere and the feeling and their point of view on what that story was, which was dealing predominantly with post-traumatic syndrome.
It was a good take on it.
Well, it's creative license, isn't it?
And look, let's face it.
I don't think he's going to rise from the dead. And
he plagiarised himself from everywhere, so really, it's okay. No, he did. Well, when I say plagiarism is what we call that now, but he was influenced by Plato and all the Greeks and all of the historians had come before from Europe, and you know, that's where he got a lot of his material from, of the stories. So yeah, I think he'd be okay with this as long as we're respectful with how we do it. I think he'd be okay with this.
I think that was the law before the copyright law came in. You were allowed to copy whoever you wanted, so long as you made it better.
Yes,
that
pretty much.
Because is it Romeo and Juliet's Tristan and
Tristan and I'll never get the Isolde. Thank you, Billy. Isolde. Yes,
thanks,
it is.
Doug.
Yeah.
One out of 4 of us you have.
I know. It's terrible. I should have known that. But yes, exactly. It's
and what about the controversy of him not being the official single?
It's garbage.
It's actually just been proven incorrect. They've actually proven recently that he was the writer of all the works.
So nobody's been given a co-writing credit?
Oh yes, they have. Right. We're not talking about the authorship. Here we go. We're not talking about the authorship controversy. We're talking about the actual writing aspect. Yes, someone has, which I do love. That Christopher Marlowe just got credited as being co-author of the Henry VI cycle of plays. I think it was 6th. Yeah, Henry VI, 1, 2 and 3, of being the co-author of those particular history plays with Shakespeare, which is not a shock. I'm actually not very surprised.
Will you be modifying?
Oh, he's credited. We actually have, in Stephen Costin's episode, which is Henry VI Part 3, we actually credit it as written by William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. We have already done that, yeah, definitely.
Oh, you're right on the ball.
Oh, yeah, don't you worry. I find this, I mean, when I said about the business about him not being the author, there's been such a debate around that with split focus. They've actually just had some evidence come forward that he actually did write the plays. The playwright was also the player in the company, was also the man from Stratford. They have actually joined the dots through paperwork, funnily enough through tax records predominantly, but they have actually hilarious, see, death and taxes, but yeah, they have actually tracked that through. So what's interesting, look, Thomas More's a good example. This is why I think the Marlowe thing's not a shock. Thomas More was written by 10 playwrights in essentially an Elizabethan writer's room,
right?
Which Shakespeare was one of them.
Yeah.
And they have the way they know that, they have the original manuscript, and they've got all these different handwriting forms in there going, that's 10 different people that have written this.
Right.
Which I think was a shock because everyone had that romantic idea that they all sat in their garrets with their quills and, you know, looking for inspiration individually. No, I personally think they were all in the pub. And they would sit there and say, I'm really stuck on this idea. Can anyone help me? And someone else would go, yeah, I've just had a thought. Actually, you could, which actually Shakespeare in Love, bless them, the Tom Stoppard film, who wrote it. I mean, they covered that of him being in the pub and talking about Romeo and Ethel. And Marlowe going, have you thought maybe Juliet might be a better name? I mean, you know, it's entirely how it would have worked.
I thought that was a documentary when I saw it.
Yeah, well, exactly. But, you know, it makes total fact. But it makes sense of it because they were living in each other's pockets. They were influenced by each other. So it makes sense that occasionally they would collaborate as modern writers do. Yeah. You know, I'm also a writer. I collaborate with several writers. It's some may not do that, but it doesn't surprise me to hear that the Elizabethans were doing it because they also had the sheer pressure of the amount of plays they were expected to turn out because they were the movie industry of today only on steroids. Like it was crazy the amount of work that was generated. You'd have to collaborate or you just wouldn't have enough time or ideas or resources to sit down and write all those plays on your own.
Yeah.
And there's also Shakespeare's canon. I mean, they estimate there's up to 10 to 15 plays we don't have anymore that he wrote on top of what he did write. So, yeah, I mean, that would be a crazy schedule for anyone to run on their own. But he was still a genius.
Yes.
Well, I do remember his book. My dad has it on his shelf. I'm holding my hands up
on radio,
but it's about 6 inches wide, and when you open it, it's tiny print as well. So if it was and thin paper, if it was actually, it's amazing that one human wrote that much.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, I mean, what's interesting with the Marlowe crediting and that sort of thing, because they're also, Thomas Ford also wrote with Shakespeare. He was considered Shakespeare's apprentice. I think it was Thomas, I've got to get that right. I think it was Thomas Ford. Am I wrong? No, Thomas, I'll get that right. There's John Ford. There's, couple of other playwrights came up after Shakespeare who did their apprenticeship with Shakespeare, who actually contributed to some of his later plays. And they were credited at the time as being co-writers. And then the Victorians came along and romanticised everything and kind of removed names and went, no, it was the genius known as Shakespeare. And that actually is what then set him up to be a target, because they did that. And then all of a sudden you had all these people saying, but was he really the writer at the same time? But yeah, he'd been credited prior with other writers as well. There's certainly clearly works that were just his, and then works that were clearly a collaboration, and they influence each other. But the reason they worked out the Marlowe thing is Marlowe writes very differently to Shakespeare. He's much more visceral and in your face and beautiful, but really strong. And so they analysed the way that those texts had been written, and they just worked out it was pretty much almost 50-50 of the two different styles. And Shakespeare didn't change his style and Marlowe didn't change his. So they were saying that's not just about influence, that's actually a collaboration that's gone on there.
Yeah.
But, you know, hopefully we'll be able to put all that arguments to rest and just enjoy the work soon. I get tired of hearing people arguing about did so-and-so write this or whatever else. Once we get that clear, we'll be able to go back and just enjoy the works for what they are, because I think they were an extraordinary group of writers at the time.
Yeah.
And they actually were the writers that gave birth to modern Western theatre as we know it. So that's the other reason why I think I celebrate them, because they were writing just extraordinary pieces of human observation, as apart from anything else, but particularly Shakespeare. He was very, very good at that as a writer himself. So, yeah.
And inventing words. And sayings that have become... disappear into thin air.
Yes.
That's his.
Disappear into thin air.
Do we know any others?
Oh, my goodness. There's a whole range. I actually have them on the website.
Apple
of my eye. That's one of his. He's actually, I do have this funny idea in my head of Shakespeare sitting there writing and suddenly running out of, like, not knowing what the word was because he was just overloaded, and going, all right, I'm just going to make that one up and that'll work. And everyone, oh my goodness, what a genius. It's more that he was just so overwhelmed or tired and he just couldn't think of what the word was. But yes, he did. He was credited with creating nearly, believingly, 1,000 words in the English language.
Do you know the only modern equivalent that I can think of Shakespeare is Seinfeld? Because Seinfeld is full of,
yes,
Seinfeldisms, close talker and you master of your domain.
So do you think we'll be doing a web series?
I think in a few
about
years'
Seinfeld.
time, Seinfeld could be it.
That would be your dream come
well,
true.
that was fantastic.
Well, thanks. Yes, I feel like I actually know something about Shakespeare now. And I have watched episodes, but I haven't watched the whole thing. So where can I catch these episodes?
Great. The easiest place is probably the website, which is shakespearerepublic.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, that will lead you to our YouTube channel, and but the episodes are actually up on the website as well. Current episode up is Michaela Bannis playing Hamlet,
Fantastic.
Which is our current release, released yesterday. And we have 6 more, I think. And then we're at the end of the season and they'll all be available. Beauty of web series, they're there all the time for you to watch whenever. So enjoy that. You can just go and wander through. We also have all our behind the scenes stuff and all that other bits and pieces just for fun and games. But so that's where it is, shakespearerepublic.com. And if you put Shakespeare Republic into Facebook, you'll find our Facebook page as well. So,
and even if you just type Shakespeare web series, you're number 1. So
are we?
Yeah. So it's easy to find.
Amazing. Oh my goodness, that's good news. I didn't know that. Thanks for that.
Well, thanks for coming in today, both of you, coming out here and talking to us. We look forward to hearing this exciting news.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? I just
In a
had
couple
drop that in the thing. It's a new project that we're working on that is part of the Shakespeare world.
It's an Oliver Wilde web series.
No, there is one already, which is awesome. Just saying. Yeah, it exists.
Dang.
All right. Well,
thanks again.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Tune in next week. I can't tell you who our guests are because they're not in front of me, but they'll be amazing, just like this week.
Yeah, Shakespeare himself will be here. All right.